Near the end of 9 AD, at approximately the same time as the 17th, 18th and 19th legions, commanded by Publius Quinctilius Varus, were slaughtered in the Teutoburg forest, Agrippina returned to Rome alongside her triumphant husband, Germanicus Julius Caesar. The streets of Rome were alive with celebration, for the news of their victory over the rebellious tribes of Pannonia had spread throughout the city. The people hailed Tiberius and Germanicus as heroes, beacons of hope and strength in the face of Rome's challenges. Though the Pannonians had surrendered early in 9 AD, one of the rebel leaders, Bato the Dicitiate, remained at large, evading capture. Pannonia's largest tribe, the Bruci, who had originally joined the rebellion under the second Bato, had switched sides. By joining Rome against their former allies, the Bruci bolstered Tiberius's forces with 8 cohorts of auxiliary troops. This shift in allegiance fractured the rebellion, forcing Bato the Dicitiate to flee into the rugged mountains of Dalmatia, where he continued his resistance. Tiberius, the supreme commander of the Bellum Batonianum, strategically divided his forces into 3 divisions in preparation for a decisive push into Dalmatian territory. Marcus Aemilius Lepidus, the brother-in-law of Agrippina's exiled sister Julilla, commanded the legions at Siscia and advanced northwest. Meanwhile, Marcus Plautius Silvanus led his forces southeast from Sirmium. Together, Lepidus and Silvanus systematically exterminated the Dicitiate and Perustae tribes, those who had taken refuge in mountain strongholds. Tiberius and Germanicus also led their forces into Dalmatia. Tiberius marched towards Salona and laid siege to Andretium, the mountain fortress where Bato the Dicitiate had fled. Germanicus, on the other hand, led his forces against the towns of Rhaetinum, Cerretium, and Splonum, easily securing all 3. However, after marching to Tiberius's aid at the siege of Andretium, the rebel forces regrouped and returned to burn the town of Rhaetinum to the ground. When Bato refused to surrender, Tiberius ended the siege and launched a relentless assault on the fortress, ultimately capturing Bato. As Tiberius negotiated the terms of surrender with Bato the Dicitiate, Germanicus marched his legions to the fortified town of Arduba. Demonstrating his military prowess, Germanicus swiftly forced the town's surrender, along with several surrounding settlements, after which he and Tiberius returned to Rome, with the long-awaited announcement of victory. Clutching the hands of her children, Agrippina, ever the supportive wife, stood by Germanicus's side as they entered the city. The streets of Rome were lined with citizens eager to celebrate the return of their heroes. And though the crowd's cheers were for her husband and father-in-law, Agrippina's presence served as a reminder of the sacred lineage from which she and the children of Germanicus all hailed, being not only the granddaughter of Caesar Augustus himself, but the daughter of Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa, another man much beloved by the Roman people. In honor of his military achievements in Pannonia, Agrippina's husband was awarded a triumph to be scheduled the following year. He was also given the rank of praetor, though not the title itself. Germanicus was also granted the right to stand for the consulship 5 years before the required legal age, honors once granted to Agrippina's brothers, Gaius and Lucius Caesar. This political distinction gave Germanicus a preeminent voice within the Senate, allowing him to speak immediately after the consuls, but before any other senators. Yet, Rome's festive mood was quickly tempered by ominous news filtering in from the north. A devastating loss had occurred in Germania's Teutoburg forest, casting a shadow on the otherwise triumphant return of Germanicus and Agrippina. Stricken by the loss, and the threat it posed to Rome's stability, Agrippina's grandfather, Caesar Augustus, leaned heavily on Tiberius and Germanicus to restore confidence to the Roman people. Cancelling his triumph, Tiberius was immediately dispatched north, tasked with fortifying the Rhine River against a possible Germanic invasion of Gaul. Germanicus, who, in lieu of marching in the triumph, was awarded the triumphal regalia, remained in the city, where he served a term as quaestor, advocating in the Roman law courts. Aware of the political undercurrents of a city on the brink of panic, Agrippina moved with grace and determination in supporting her husband's rising prominence in Roman politics. When Germanicus defended a man accused of murder in 10 AD, the prosecution moved for a trial before Agrippina's grandfather himself, citing the celebrity of Germanicus as being unduly influential on the court of civic judges, each of whom might vote just to please Rome's new, popular hero. The defense accepted, and Germanicus passionately and successfully advocated for the defendant in front of Agrippina's grandfather. This made her husband even more popular with the Roman people, who appreciated his fearlessness to advocate for capital trials before Augustus, as well as for the lesser judges of the civic courts. But in navigating the aftermath of the Bellum Variana, Agrippina's presence in Rome during this period was not merely symbolic of a dutiful wife. Having learned the effects of propaganda from studying her grandfather, Agrippina made herself a figure of strength and continuity, a direct link to Augustus and the golden age he represented. Although her support for Germanicus remained unwavering, her individual actions were instrumental in maintaining the morale of the Roman people. She participated in public ceremonies, visited temples, and offered sacrifices to the gods, all to assure the citizens of Rome that the divine favour and protection of her grandfather would continue, one day, through her children by Germanicus. There was only one possible threat to Agrippina's plans: Tiberius himself. When Agrippina's grandfather adopted Tiberius as his son and primary heir in 4 AD, it was a calculated decision, but one marked by caution. Augustus only proceeded with Tiberius's adoption after Tiberius had first adopted Germanicus, and not before, indicating Augustus's mistrust that Tiberius would follow through with his dynastic intentions once he was granted legal authority. But this arrangement left Agrippina uneasy. After all, Tiberius had a biological son of his own, Drusus Julius Caesar, now commonly called Castor, following his father's dedication of the temple to the Roman gods Castor and Pollux. Castor was younger than Germanicus, and the stipulation Agrippina's grandfather demanded effectively moved Castor into the position of secondary son and heir. In 4 AD, when these arrangements were made, Augustus likely envisioned Germanicus and Castor as equals, yet another pair of imperators to be trained and educated for the highest office in the land, much like he had done with Agrippina's brothers Gaius and Lucius, and with his stepsons Tiberius and Drusus. But now, Agrippina's grandfather was 74 years old. How much longer could he hope to live? And so, his every thought turned to the continuation of his legacy after his death. Employing his auctoritas, or moral clout, as the father of the nation, Caesar Augustus put pressure on the Senate to further centralize his own legal authority, using his position as Pontifex Maximus to legitimize his actions. Augustus began presiding over more legal cases, such as the murder trial defended by Germanicus. In this way, Agrippina's grandfather further reduced the judicial powers of the Senate and the local magistrates. Using the same methods, Caesar Augustus also reformed the legal system, making provincial governors, even those posted in the Senate's public provinces, answerable to himself, rather than to the Senate. Any dissent from within the Senate was swiftly purged and promptly replaced with senators loyal to the Augustan dynastic plan. In discerning protesting voices, potential rivals, and opposition groups, Caesar Augustus merely expanded his network of spies and informants, offering greater payouts for valuable information. And all this, Agrippina's grandfather did to ensure the smooth transition of his unprecedented powers to Tiberius, the man Augustus believed would hold the principate in trust until Agrippina's sons came of age. But would he? Once Agrippina's grandfather was gone, and the legal authority to do so lay in his hands, what was to stop Tiberius from dismantling the career of Germanicus and instead managing the advancement of Castor? Castor's wife, Livilla, the sister of Germanicus, had once been married to Agrippina's brother, Gaius Caesar, the first adopted heir of Caesar Augustus. She had been poised to become Rome's next prima femina, or first lady. But Gaius was dead now, and Livilla was just the wife of Castor, the biological son of Rome's next imperator, thrust from his natural position of primogeniture by an adoption forced on Tiberius. But was she content? Agrippina thought not. Livilla and Castor were also first cousins. They were both the grandchildren of Rome's current prima femina, Livia Drusilla, the very woman Agrippina believed to have manipulated the exiles and deaths of her mother, grandmother, and siblings, all so that her own Claudian descendants could control Rome after Augustus. Acutely aware of the delicate balance of power and the hidden threats to both her husband's position and to her children's future, Agrippina's unwavering support for Germanicus was not just a personal commitment. It was a strategic stance to safeguard her family's legacy. And so, maintaining her public role with decorum and dedication, Agrippina continued to navigate the nuanced but stressful political landscape of the imperial family, never allowing the cracks in her confidence to show. All Agrippina had to do was continue providing heirs for the future of the Augustan Principate, while Castor and Livilla continued to remain childless. As the mother of Augustus's great-grandchildren, Agrippina positioned herself as a reminder of the Pax Romana given to Rome by Caesar Augustus, and the promise of that legacy's future through her children.